I've had the pleasure of meeting Kid Rock a few times. I see you're pretty chummy with him. And then the late great Vinnie Paul was also out at one of your shows. I saw that. You got any? I mean, Kid Rock, I believe. I want to say the first time I met him was a Grammy after party. We just went in passing. It was more of a like, hey, and I was like, hey, I know who that is, and he was like, I don't know who you are, but I'm gonna pretend like I do. And I was like, that's how you know you made it, because he started pretending like he knew who I was. I was like, there ain't no fucking way you know who I am. But it was funny. It was many years ago, and then over the time we have some mutual friends. We party in Vegas together and be in the same suite. And he was bartending like one of my best friends' like bachelor parties years ago. He was just behind the bar in the suite, and it was like I like walked up and I'm like, hey kid, can I get a Jack and Coke? He's like, no problem. I was like, rad, man. Like, okay, so and then. I don't know if you're familiar with Fletcher Pennywise, guitar player. Pennywise was on the show, and he had very different experiences with Kid Rock when he was on the Warped Tour years ago. So I just wanted to know, like, how did you become friends, and what is your impression or impressions, including your first impression of Kid Rock?
So I met. All right. Well, first off, I got booked on Kid Rock's cruise.
Okay.
And they booked it through my agency, and I just figured, because I was still wearing bell bottoms at the time and all that shit.
Oh, by the way, I have to get into that before I let you go. I'm getting into the evolution of your look, but please continue.
Okay, all right. So I just figured someone from Sixth Man had called my agency and been like, hey, we need a rock and roll comedian for the Kid Rock thing. Mm-hmm. And I fit the bill. Like, that's what I figured had happened. And then weeks later, I was talking to a friend of mine at the Comedy Store. He's like, hey, man, weird story. I was hanging out with Kid Rock the other week, and he did like 3 of your bits and quoted you. It was you, and said how big of a fan he was of you. And so then, and he goes, and it turns out he personally booked you for his cruise. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing his cruise. I didn't know he personally booked me. I thought it was, and then I told him the story I just told you. And he was like,
Chris, you gotta see, I know this was probably years ago. I don't mean to interject here, but you got to play it like you knew that, like, especially when you're among peers, just be like, yeah, kid gave me a call on the phone. I was kind of on the fence about it, but like, he's kind of a homie. So I figured I'd do this thing for him.
I was still very much in the, because here's the deal. When they called and offered me the gig, I go, yeah, I'll do the gig. And in my head, I was like, worst comes to worst, I'll just write an article. It's get a gig writing somewhere. And so, I end up on the cruise, and I remember Kid Rock does the first show as soon as you leave.
Okay.
First dude up is Kid Rock. So I have my artist pass, and I go backstage, and they're like, you can't come back here. I was like, no, man, I'm an artist. And they're like, yeah, no, artists can't come back during Kid Rock shows. And I was like, well, fuck you and fuck that guy. And go to continue drinking somewhere else. Because I was not interested in a Kid Rock show at the time.
Okay.
So then, a dude out of Flint, Michigan, a country dude, Whitey something, was playing, a country guy.
Okay.
And
I would go ahead and say okay, and I don't know who that was based on Flint, Michigan, but I'll just nod my head and go, yep, I know that guy.
Waylon, it's not Sturgill, but he sounded like Waylon.
Okay.
And fucking killed it. So I'm at that show, and I'm having a great time, and I look up, and on the set, because it's like on the ship, it was in that like center bar area where there's like 2 levels. Anyone who's been on a cruise ship, like, that's an area. And so I'm watching it, and he's up there, and I'm like, well, if this guy's such a big fan, I'll go stand behind his entourage and wait for him to see me. So I walk upstairs, and like there's like a little security detail around his little group. And I just sit there and start drinking beer, and not 10 minutes later, he turns around to talk to somebody, and he catches eyes with me. He goes, hey, you, come here. And he starts talking to me, and he was like, "Man, I'm kind of starstruck even talking to you." I'm like, and it's just the weirdest thing and so, and we just became fast friends. And you know what? And Bobby is the most genuine dude on the face of the planet. And he invited me to a few of his houses, and we've hung out and had deep conversations and gotten way too drunk. And he's always been like, "What can I do to help you?"
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, every interaction I've had with Kid Rock, I'm not on Bobby terms as you are, but every time that I've had conversations with him in passing and stuff, he's always been gracious and a really cool dude.